Hello students, this is the continuation video of chapter 9 history, making of the national movement, and this is the third video of this chapter. In this video we are going to talk about the advent of Mahatma Gandhi. So it is in these circumstances, which circumstances, that is after World War, when actually people were very unhappy, there was very much unrest in the society, that Mahatma Gandhi emerged as a mass leader. Mahatma Gandhi became the leader of the masses, leader of the people. As you may know, Gandhiji, aged 46, arrived in India in 1915 from South Africa. Having led Indians in that country in non-violent marches against racist restrictions, he was already a respected leader known internationally. So, Gandhiji was a very famous person till then because of the things he had done in South Africa. His South African campaigns have brought him in contact with various type of Indians, Hindus, Muslims, Parsis and Christians, Gujaratis, Tamils and North Indians, and upper class merchants, lawyers and workers. So the work he did in South Africa actually, gave him an opportunity to meet different types of people. Now, if we look at figure 6, the founders of the Natal Congress, Durban, South Africa, 1895. In 1895, along with other Indians, Mahatma Gandhi established the Natal Congress to fight against racial discrimination in South Africa. And if we look at this picture, this is Mahatma Gandhi. So, Mahatma Gandhi spent his first year in India traveling throughout the country, and he traveled in trains. Understanding the people, their needs, and overall situation, his earliest interventions were in local movements in Champaran. Champaran is in Bihar, Kheda is in Maharashtra, and Ahmedabad in Gujarat, where he came in contact with leaders like Rajendra Prasad and Vallabhbhai Patel. I hope you all have heard their names. Rajendra Prasad was the first president of independent India, and Vallabhbhai Patel was the first home minister of independent India. In Ahmedabad, he led a successful mill workers' strike in 1918. Let us now focus in some detail on the movements organized between 1919 and 1922. So this period was very significant, after 1919, 2-3 years were very important. The Rowlatt Satyagraha. In 1919, Gandhiji gave a call for a satyagraha against the Rowlatt Act that the British had just passed. So, his method of protest was also called satyagraha. Satyagraha included the use of peaceful protest and use of non-violence, etc., and use of truth. The act curbed fundamental rights. So it was against the Rowlatt Act. Now, what did this Rowlatt Act did? The Rowlatt Act curbed means took away fundamental rights like freedom of expression and strengthened the powers of the police. So it gave police a lot of power. Mahatma Gandhi, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and others felt that the government had no right to restrict people's basic freedoms. They criticized the act as devilish and tyrannical. It was very cruel because since police now had a lot of power, they started beating up people with a lot of cruelty. Gandhiji asked the Indian people to observe 6 April 1919 as the day of non-violent opposition to this act, as the day of humiliation and prayer. and Hartal. Satyagraha Sabhas were set up to launch the movement. The Rowlatt Satyagraha turned out to be the first all India struggle against the British government. So it became an all India, means all parts of India, including all people of India, became a part of the Satyagraha, although it was largely restricted to the cities. In April 1919, there were a number of demonstrations and hartals in the country, and the government used brutal, brutal measures to suppress them. Brutal measures include firing on them, beating the people, etc. The Jallianwala Bagh atrocities inflicted by General Dyer in Amritsar on Baisakhi Day, 13 April, were a part of this repression. On learning about the massacre, Rabindranath Tagore expressed the pain and anger of the country by renouncing his knighthood. So, Rabindranath Tagore was given knighthood by the British crown, and whenever a person gets knighthood, the word "sir" is used before his name. So he gave up this title. He said, I don't want this title because Jallianwala Bagh was a very, very, upsetting thing which happened in India. Knighthood is an honor granted by British Crown for exceptional personal achievement or public service. During the Rowlatt Satyagraha, the participants tried to ensure that Hindus and Muslims were united in the fight against the British rule. So for the first time, the Hindus and the Muslims, they came together to fight against the British rule. This was also the call of Mahatma Gandhi, who always saw India as a land of all the people of the country, Hindus, whether they were Hindus, Muslims, and those of other religions. He was keen that Hindus and Muslims support each other in any just cause. So, Mahatma Gandhi very much wanted, it was his heartiest desire that Hindus and Muslims come together to fight against the British. This will increase our power. After Rowlatt Satyagraha, the second was Khilafat agitation and the non-cooperation movement was launched. The Khilafat issue was one such cause. In 1920, the British imposed a harsh treaty on the Turkish Sultan, who was also called Khalifa. People were furious. Furious means they were angry about this, as they had been about the Jallianwala massacre. Also, Indian Muslims were keen that Khalifa be allowed to retain control over Muslim sacred places in the erstwhile Ottoman Empire. So, Ottoman Empire is in Turkey. So, they wanted that all the powers of Khalifa should be returned because Khalifa was the religious leader of Muslims. The leaders like of Khilafat agitation, Muhammad Ali, Shaukat Ali, now wished to initiate full-fledged non-cooperation movement. Gandhiji supported their call and urged the Congress to campaign against Punjab wrongs. Whatever wrong things which happened in Punjab, against this non-cooperation movement should be launched, especially against Jallianwala Bagh massacre, the Khilafat wrong and demand Swaraj. The non-cooperation movement gained momentum through 1921 to 22. Thousands of students left government controlled schools and colleges. Many lawyers, such as Motilal Nehru, C.R. Das, Rajgopalachari, and Asaf Ali, gave up their practices. These all were lawyers. In British courts, British titles were surrendered and legislatures boycotted. People lit public bonfires of foreign cloth. So bonfire means they lit a big fire in middle of the street and they threw all the British clothes and products in that fire. The imports of Foreign cloth fell drastically between 1920 and 1922. But all this was merely the tip of iceberg. So all this was just a very small part of the movement. Large parts of the country were on the brink of a formidable revolt, and a lot of things were about to happen. Now, people's initiatives. Initiatives means people's efforts. In many cases, people resisted. Resisted means fought against British rule non-violently. Of course, because Mahatma Gandhi talked about ahimsa, he urged people, he asked people to protest in a non-violent way. In others, different classes and groups interpreting Gandhiji's call in their own manner protested in ways that were not accordance with their ideas. So, what happened was that people actually interpreted the satyagraha or the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi according to whatever suited them. So, because of this, we actually saw that in many areas or regions, people were using force or violence. In either case, people linked their movements to local grievances. Let us look at some examples. In Kheda, Gujarat, Patidar peasants organized non-violent campaigns against the high land revenue demand of the British. Pattidars were the peasants with small strips of land. They were protesting against the high land revenue demand. In coastal Andhra and interior Tamil Nadu, liquor shops were picketed. Picketed means when people protesting outside a building or shop prevent others from entering. In Guntur district of Andhra Pradesh, tribals and poor peasants staged number of forest satyagrahas, sometimes sending their cattle into forest without paying grazing fee. They were protesting because colonial state had restricted their use of forest resources in various ways. So these tribal people believe that Gandhiji will get their taxes reduced and have the forest regulations abolished. In many forest villages, peasants proclaimed Swaraj and believed that Gandhi Raj was about to be established. So, people are fighting their own local battles. And all these small regions or regional fights became a part of big movement today, which we call non-cooperation movement. In Sindh, Muslim traders and peasants were very excited about Khilafat call. In Bengal too, the Khilafat non-cooperation alliance gave enormous communal unity. Communal unity means unity between Hindus and Muslims and strength to the national movement. In Punjab, the Akali agitation of the Sikhs sought to remove corrupt Mahants. These were rich people who were supported by the British from their gurudwaras. So they wanted to remove these people from the gurudwaras. This movement got closely identified with the non-cooperation movement in Assam. Tea garden laborers shouting Gandhi Maharaj ki jai demanded big increase in their wages. They left the British owned plantations amidst declarations that they were following Gandhiji's wishes. Interestingly, in the Assamese Vaishnav songs of the period, the reference to Krishna was substituted by Gandhi Raja. So, Gandhiji almost became like a god figure to so many people. He gave new hope to these people who were very much exploitation and in very bad condition. Because of the coming of Mahatma Gandhi, these people got courage to stand up for their rights.